How's everybody doing? It's great to be among patriots. Thank you for your community activism. Say hi to my friend Mr. Fitzpatrick over there. He had some help with this. Am I speaking okay? Everybody can hear me okay? Perfect. So as my friend Mr. Piotr said, we have a non-binding measure on the ballot this fall called Measure TT. And the idea is for whether or not you folks think that we should study the concept of putting together the Water District and the Wastewater District, Costa Mesa Sanitary District. So it's Mesa Water District, Costa Mesa Sanitary District. In the County of Orange, there are only 2 separate sanitation districts left. All others have been merged into the water districts. Irvine Ranch Water District, for example, does water and wastewater. That's how it is everywhere except for Costa Mesa Sanitary District and Midway City. Those are the only 2 left. The reasons why, gee whiz, do we think that it might be a good idea to put these 2 government agencies together, and that's the question we're asking you is, should we study this, there's 5 board members at the Costa Mesa Sanitary District. Those 5 board members manage 17 employees. They collect the rate for the trash, which Mr. Fitzpatrick ran a campaign on and accurately reported and brought to my attention years ago, which I found outrageous, is that the trash contract had never been put to bid since World War II. Gee whiz, that's called an evergreen contract if I've ever heard of one. And it's quite a remarkable evergreen contract because not only has it not been put to bid since 1942, it has a clause that says, gee whiz, if you want to cancel this contract, you have to give us 7 years of notice before you do so. So yes, indeed. In addition to that, we pay more for our wastewater and trash collection than our neighboring city of Newport Beach, perhaps because we don't have a competitive market going on here, which I promise we will have a competitive market should the 2 agencies merge together. In addition to that, the collection of the rates. All government agencies, I'm your representative, and thank you very much for electing me. It's a privilege to serve you, and if I should ever be of service to you, please call on me personally. I'm readily available to the community. But part of the government agency is to have a good capital structure. What does that mean? That means that we're going to take some of your money, a fraction of a cent, and we're going to put it aside in a savings account and stuff in a savings account in case bad things might happen. Earthquakes, natural disaster, who knows what. We have to fix things in a hurry. We can't always go to the stock market to borrow money or whatever we need to do to fix things. So we got to have some savings on the side. Well, the sanitary district's got about $50 million in the savings account over there. And unlike water, wastewater flows through a pipe by natural gravity. Water systems are much more complex because we have to have a certain amount of pressure so that when you turn on your tap, the water comes out at a certain force. You have to be able to flush your toilet, and we have to think through the diurnal cycle so that in the morning when everybody gets up, all 110,000 of us in the city at 8 a.m., and we all flush our toilet at the same time, that in fact there is sufficient pressure to flush everybody's toilet, not just one person's toilet. It has to be everybody's toilet. So the wastewater that goes through the toilet goes out by gravity. So the clay pipes that have been in the ground since forever don't need as much maintenance. They don't need as much repair. They do need to be cleaned occasionally. But it's not quite as complex as running a water district. Drinking water has to be safe for you to drink. There's all kinds of tests we have to do on it. It has to be pure and sterile and all kinds of other things that are very complex and scientific. So water district's a lot more complex, difficult to run, scientific and expensive. But nonetheless, the sanitary district has collected about $50 million of ratepayer money. That's your money, not my money. It is some of my money, but it's also your money. And should the merger, consolidation of these 2 agencies go through, our consultant told us that we would perhaps, and I think this is logically realistic, and I think we might be able to do, at least this good, is that we'd be able to provide $15.6 million in savings and annual savings of $2.7 million and give everybody in the community a $650 rebate. So in other words, we take that money that's sitting in the savings account that's really your money and we give it back to you. That's really where it belongs. It belongs in the hands of the ratepayer. You guys are a taxpayers group, stood up for limited government, stood up for the concept of taxpayer initiatives. This is a once-in-a-generation, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I cannot tell you how difficult it was to get it to this point. The boards of directors have a natural incentive to preserve their seats. All of us get paid some money to sit on these boards of directors. To me, it's a volunteer type of position. I could do other things and make more money, but I choose to serve the public because I have a unique skill set, and I think it's proven itself valuable over time, and you folks were kind enough to elect me by wide margins, and thank you again for that. However, these board seats, some of them are used to supplement our income, and that's okay. However, those who are supplementing their income with them naturally don't want to lose those seats. So one of the points of resistance is, who remains once this consolidation would occur? Well, the logical answer to that question is you guys will decide that. We'll all stand for election again. That's how it's going to happen. They can run against us. We can run against them. You can run against any one of us. Any one of you folks can do this and take the job away from any of us if we're doing a bad job, and I would encourage you to do so. The challenge in an electoral cycle is an important thing. It sharpens the focus of those who are elected. It sharpens the focus of the districts that they serve, and it sharpens the focus on the attention that the people in the community think that we need to focus on. And that's really where the attention should be paid. So Measure TT is a non-binding. If you guys vote for this and you say, yeah, this is a good idea, what you're voting for is that we're going to continue to study this. What we did, Mesa Water District, was we spent some money, about $300,000, to take forth the idea of, does it make sense to consolidate these two districts, two government agencies? And to answer that question, we hired a third-party engineering firm called Arcadis. They're world-renowned, objective third parties. We gave them a scope of work, and they said, we went to them and said, can you look at their operations, look at our operations, and tell us if by combining these two agencies we could provide an economic benefit that would inure to the interest of our customers and the ratepayers that we serve? And the answer was a resounding yes. Again, $15.6 million in savings up front, $2.7 million annually, and a $650 rebate per customer. Oh, and I forgot to mention, we'd be able to reduce the sewer rates by 28%. So there's a significant economic advantage at the first blush of the, first wave of the wand. Brought the consultants in, they looked at the operation of the two districts, and they said yes. We have an objective third party that said yes, so we want to take the next step forward. Our suggestion as board of directors who are studying this issue and have been talking about this for a very, very long time, by the way, our initial impression is, of course, this makes tons of sense to study it. I like to say that those of us who are in a position to know have an obligation to discover and tell. You folks charged us with the responsibility of running this utility, and your expectation, at least my expectation if I were in your shoes of me, would be that, Shawn, do a good job, find out ways to make the utility that you're running less expensive for all of us. Money is a precious commodity in everybody's household, and we could spend it on more important things than water. We don't need to spend more than it costs. We need to spend the minimum amount to make the thing run well. That's the goal and objective, and I think that's what you guys expect of us, and so that we've taken that step to study this initially. So some claim, and you may hear these claims in the community, and I'd respectfully request that you help me rebut them. One claim is made that this process was rushed. We rushed it. Our board of directors rushed this. Well, as my friend Mr. Piotr accurately said, I was first appointed to the board of directors at Mesa Water District in 2005. And since I was elected, every single electoral cycle, every single time all of us government guys get together and talk about water and wastewater, and we cross paths frequently, I mean like once a week, twice a month, 3 times a month, once a month, all the time at these different government meetings, this conversation comes up, not only from those of us who are elected directors, but from community members like you. How come we have a separate water district and a separate wastewater district? Do we need 2 governments to run, we need a special government for wastewater and we need a special government for water. Do we need two governments to do those things? People would ask those questions. So I actually naturally asked those questions myself. Jim Fitzpatrick and I got in a conversation about this, and he ran for election and won on that concept. So it's been talked about for a very long time, and it precedes, this conversation precedes my term on our board. Another concept that's thrown around is this is a hostile takeover. Well, there's no such thing as a hostile takeover in the government because we don't decide. Even you guys can't decide that we want Mesa Water to take over the Sand District. Even if you said that, we couldn't do it. There's another government agency that nobody's ever heard of called the LAFCO, the Local Agency Formation Committee. It's the most powerful government agency nobody's ever heard of. And they have the power to determine the merger, the consolidation of agencies like ours. In fact, they were formed by a piece of legislation in the state called the Knox-Cortese-Hertzberg Act back a long, long time ago, in the late 70s, the Knox-Cortese-Hertzberg Act. And what the Knox-Cortese-Hertzberg Act, in a stumbling into brilliance, Sacramento said, we have too many government agencies around the state of California, and we need to encourage these government agencies to get together to find efficiencies to serve the community. So they formed these LAFCOs, and the LAFCO, the Local Agency Formation Committee, was charged with causing the merger of government agencies, water and wastewater districts. And it's happened over and over and over again in the history, up and down the state and all over Orange County, except for two agencies, Costa Mesa Sanitary District and Midway City. So here we stand today. We are one of the last two. So the concept of a hostile takeover, we can't force the takeover, they can't force the takeover of us. The concept would have to cause the two agencies to study the issue, then we will hand it over to the LAFCO, and LAFCO will validate the study that we've done. If the Costa Mesa Sanitary District continues to object to this, they will study their objections, they will rule them valid or invalid, and at the end of the day, they will make a judgment and say, yes, that this makes a lot of sense, you guys should get together, and one of us will go away. This happened recently. East Orange County Water District took over sewer area number 7 from the Orange County Sanitation District. So just recently, within the last few months, this whole process completed itself, and now there is a new wastewater district called the East Orange County Water District, but also they serve wastewater. So another concern that folks have is Mesa Water District, I voted for spending some money to do this, about $300,000 to study this. Well, yeah, I'm gonna spend $300,000 to give you guys back $50 million, roughly speaking. And so this is a good use of ratepayer money. If I can make this happen, this is a good use of ratepayer money. Second question is, do we have to spend the money? Only because Costa Mesa Sanitary District objected. Had they agreed in the first place, I went and spoke with their board president repeatedly, in writing and in person, and asked respectfully, sir, would you come to the table with us, with our fellow board of directors? Mr. Atkinson, sitting in the back of the room here, is also a fellow director at Mesa Water District. Thanks for coming, Jim. So we as boards of directors did reach out to them. We respectfully asked that they sit down at the table with us and have a conversation about this concept. And they said, what's the rush? And my reply was, we've been talking about this for about 11 years and we need to get this off the dime. And so we took the step, hired the consultant. The consultant came back and validated what we thought was to be true, and in fact, I believe it to be true. And so, yeah, we spent a little bit of money to do it, but we're going to fully support the activity. We're going to validate the concepts. And if you folks give us the mandate, we will have the authority to go forward in good conscience and in good faith and in the spirit of good faith and fair dealing, knowing that you're behind us, and that's important for us who are elected. So we respectfully ask you to advocate for Measure TT, talk to your neighbors about it, encourage them to talk to us as directors if they have any questions. We're happy to have more community events and reach out to folks answer their questions. This is an open book. It is an open process, and there will be open meetings that will occur from now until this process is complete, where everybody is welcome to participate. There will also be some concerns raised about, we didn't talk about it enough. As I said, we wrote letters, we spoke in person, we've done all kinds of outreach to attempt to bring this to a solution without having to have any adversarial nature to this at all. It is my goal personally that there's no adversary here. I don't work for the Water District, I work for you folks. Mr. Atkinson works for you folks. We are elected officials, and as I said, those of us in our position to know, we are in the position to know. We have an obligation to discover and tell you the facts. You folks are the ultimate determination, the ultimate determining factor of what occurs in our community. Take an active role. I respectfully ask you to take an active role on this. Vote for the initiative. All it's going to do is allow us to continue to study the process, find out and in fact validate the facts as we know them today, make sure that they're more certain than we know them today, and we want the community's input. Some will suggest also that this is a flawed report. So again, the group we hired was Arcadis. It's an engineering firm. It is known worldwide. They do these types of studies all the time. They are respected by every major engineering government agency in the world. And if you want to see the report, you can read it for yourself. Ask us all the questions you want. There are many additional benefits of consolidating the two agencies. As you can imagine, engineers, water and wastewater engineers, you can imagine that there's duplicative staff at both organizations. The boards of directors are also duplicative. Also, the real estate is duplicative. They recently, the Costa Mesa Sanitation District, I'm going to ask for a show of hands here. How many folks have ever been to a Mr. Fitzpatrick, please stand down. How many folks in the room have ever been to a sanitation district meeting? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So with the crush of public bursting through the door, they made a determination that they needed to spend recently $5 million on a new company headquarters, for the purposes of which I am still not certain. However, I don't, in my opinion, respectfully think that that was the best use of the ratepayers' money. So the real estate that Mesa Water District also owns real estate. We have our office on 19th Street in Placentia, and rarely does a member of the public show up for our meetings. I can't imagine that there is a crushing need for 100 seats in the sanitation district office. However, they chose to do that. So the duplicative resources here of trucks, equipment, manpower, and real estate could also fit into this equation. Mesa Water District does have a AAA credit rating. This is important. It is important for the reason that someday the Newport-Inglewood Fault is likely to let loose, and I will guarantee you water pipes in the street will burst and the sewer lines themselves will burst as well. It's going to be a very expensive repair. At some point, we will likely need to go to the capital markets to borrow money to cause the replacement, the repair, and refurbishment of those things that have happened. So as a board policy, we feel that it's important to maintain a credit rating so we have access to the capital markets when we need it. In addition to that, it's also important because it provides our customers, the ratepayers in the community, that a peace of mind that a third-party objective authority is overlooking the books and records of the district itself to make sure that we are doing the job. We have the necessary sophistication and financial controls to have somebody else grant us a AAA credit rating. It's kind of like getting a really high credit score. You pay your bills on time, you manage your debt responsibly, and you don't overspend, you don't overborrow, you do the right things to maintain your financial and capital structure. So a AAA credit rating, the sanitation district does not have a credit rating. So we do. So the merger, in the merger of the two agencies, we would maintain the capital structure that we've already put in place at Mesa. Let me ask you folks if you have any questions. Yes, ma'am.
I've got a question. I just read something in the newspaper about a Superior Court ruling. Can you explain what that was and how that affects what you're talking about?
There was two recent, yes. The nice young lady here asked if there was a Superior Court ruling and what it was about. There were two court rulings recently. One was on the ballot initiative and the language itself. Actually, it was not even a ruling. The Costa Mesa Sanitation District, what we wanted to put in the ballot was the words, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here. It said, should the Mesa Water District continue to study the merger with the Costa Mesa Sanitation District if we could provide up to a $650 rebate, a 28% reduction in wastewater fees, and cost savings of $15.6 million initially and $2.7 million thereafter. That's what we wanted to put in the ballot initially. However, the Costa Mesa Sanitary District objected to that language, and we met with them. Yeah, they sued. That's the proper venue to resolve the dispute. And we agreed. And we said, you know what, let's just take out everything but and agree, and we agreed. The judge did not rule. We agreed, and all it now says is, should the Mesa Water District continue to study a potential merger with the Costa Mesa Sanitary District? So we agreed that the language would be stripped out. And I'm not aware, are you, Jim, of another?
Well, there was the earlier threat of a lawsuit over the actual issues.
But there was no Superior Court issues.
They amended that complaint to just the ballot language.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Did you write the argument in favor of it, and did Sanitation District write an argument against it?
Yes, that's correct. There's an argument in favor, and we, the board, wrote that. And then the Sanitation District is writing a rebuttal, and their rebuttal basically says that the study itself is flawed. However, they don't point out what the flaws are. They just claim that it's flawed.
And each of you wrote rebuttals to the others?
That's correct. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, in the back.
So are you talking about the Costa Mesa Sanitary District Treasurer's Mark Davis's comment to Scott Carroll, analysis of the governance structure study? He does point out the flaws in your study, and he does point out that you had two studies, not one. In the first one, you didn't like the outcome of it, so you did another study. Are you doing the rebuttal to that study? Because it hasn't been pointed out on your webpage.
So the initial, we did do two studies. One was very preliminary. It was sort of more of a back of the envelope calculation. And when it gave us the indication that, yes, in fact, the potential existed for savings, that's when we went and did what I call the real study. It was a much more significant foundational document that goes into much more detail. So his assertion is correct in that regard. However, the Arcadis study is the one that we are relying on.
He points out a lot of deficiencies, a lot of flaws in your second study. Are you rebutting that, saying, you just pointed out that we didn't point out anything that was flawed? According to this, there's a 7-page memo in here, but points out all the flaws.
If you read his memo carefully, the flaws that he is pointing out are, he refers, for example, to that we used old data. And the old data is every year a government agency is required to publish what's called a comprehensive annual financial report. That is the audited financial statement for a district like Mesa Water District. The Sanitation District has to prepare one of those as well. We relied on their CAFR because it is an audited statement. The Sanitation District, asked or suggested that we should have used their most recent financial statements, which are not audited. And there is a funny little game here because the reserves that we claimed, $5 million of now that has moved out of the reserves to a piece of real estate. So the asset is still there, it's now in a different form, so they're pointing to that as an error. But so if you read that carefully, the flaws that they point out are specious at best.
It seems like they're a lot more efficient than you are.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Director Dewane, for all your service. So I got two questions. One is, the gentleman pointed out this study by Mark Davis. One thing that hasn't been talked about is Mark Davis is the husband of the finance director of the sanitary district. How can that be objective if you are preparing a report for the benefit of your wife? And I don't think that's been talked about enough. I would take issue with the statement that the sanitary district is more efficient. They have a $5 million super fund over there for trash, and all they're doing is managing a contract. One simple, without even consolidation, I could get everybody a check here for $250 without batting an eye. So what I wanted to ask, two questions. The first one is, I see a rebuttal saying, sir, your numbers are wrong. Your numbers are wrong. I take issue. Has the sanitary district ever studied for how many millions we would save?
To my knowledge, the sanitation district has not. Yes, so I'm repeating your question. Has the sanitation district ever studied how much savings could be provided, I'm paraphrasing you, if the merger were to occur, correct? Correct. And so the answer is no, the sanitation district has never undertaken the process or project of studying a potential merger and brought this to our attention. No, they have not.
The second question I have is, in this hostile takeover, they're now claiming that it's a power grab, and what Mesa Water is really after is it's poorly managed, and they're after the reserves of the sanitary district to cover their mistakes. Isn't that unlawful?
So I can tell you about the operation of Mesa Water District. Yeah, yes, repeat the question. So yes, Mr. Fitzpatrick, bringing up, hey, thank you for reminding me, bringing up a very important point, and it's the efficiency of operation of the two districts. Is there a way, for example, to prove out who's more efficient? Well, I can tell you this, and with a great amount of pride, as a matter of fact, we undertook several years ago something we call the business improvement process. And so let's pretend Mr. Piotr kindly works at the water district. What we did is we had a time and motion person, follow him around all day long and figure out, what do you do here at the water district? And they wrote down on a checklist some minder. Oh, well, I go out and I change the fire hydrants. Well, how do you go about changing the fire hydrants? Well, I need this truck, and I need this jackhammer, and I need a saw, and I need 3 other men, and I need a crane, and I need a backhoe. And so he went to the fire hydrant, and they dug the hole. And how long did it take well, it takes about 3 days and about 5 men and a backhoe and a truck and a this and a that. So we recorded all of the equipment that go on the truck. We recorded all of the men that go on the truck. We recorded the value of the truck, the value of the jackhammer, the value of the saw. We costed the cost of his labor so that when the guys drove off the lot to do fire hydrant replacement and they came back in the lot and the fire hydrant had actually been replaced, we knew exactly how much it cost to replace every fire hydrant in the city. Then what we did is we divided the crews into two groups, Group A and Group B. And we said, hey, you guys are over here, you're going to go replace fire hydrants, and you guys are too. And then we started posting the results from the 2 groups, A and B, on a board. And we said, hey, you guys that are, and so what did they naturally do? They started competing with each other. And so the competition drove up fire hydrant replacement, which is a super important thing because it reduces your homeowner's insurance for fire purposes, because the fire department needs that fire hydrant to work when the fire starts, right? So we did that. Not only did we do that for the fire hydrant replacement, we did it for every single task in the district. We went through by department, by department, by department, and we recorded for every single person. For example, how do we get a check out of the district? You wouldn't think that this is a big deal, but in a government agency, it can be a squirrely process after about 70 years of operation. So we said, how much does it cost? Well, we got a chief financial officer, and we got an assistant to the chief financial officer, and we got a bank and a bank register, and somebody who's got to record this check, and somebody who's got to deduct the money, and somebody who's got to add all this up, and then they got to report it to a board of directors, and the board of directors has to say yes, that the facts that have been presented are correct. Whew, boy. So we got it from 13 steps down to 3 steps. And we reduced the time when the vendors came to us for payment. We reduced the time that it took for us to pay them. So they got paid quicker. We were a better partner to our private sector counterparts who served the district's interest. And on and on and on. So we went through and we discovered that there's about 119 tasks, core tasks that the district performs. And for every one of those things, we did this business improvement process, and we're not done yet. It's continuing to go on, and it's a continuous process. And in fact, we're so proud of this as a result of what we've been able to achieve. We were able to reduce full-time labor without firing people and going through nasty labor negotiations and things like that. Through natural attrition, folks left the district, and we were able to reduce full-time personnel. We found out what our core competencies were, what we were really good at and what we should hire out. And we went to the private sector and we had folks bid against each other, so we got competitive pricing for things that we didn't do well. We discovered what we did do well and we discovered what we didn't do well. And we're still working on that process. I can guarantee you that there's probably not one sanitary district in Orange County, but there's probably not one government agency in Orange County that's ever gone through a process like we have. And in fact, I'm so proud of this, I'm advocating that we submit to this, the Harvard Business School as a case study for efficiency of government. And in fact, when we went back and compared our results against every other water district in the county, we have the lowest today, the lowest operating cost per capita of any water district operating in Orange County, and it's partially because of that process. So when they make this claim, it's specious at best. We're very, very good at what we do.
Well, he's also claiming that your capital is not, you don't have the reserves, and that you need to get their reserves, and that's why you want to absorb them.
Thank you for repeating that question for me. And that is a false claim as well, because we don't need additional capital. That's why we're offering to rebate it to you. And the proof is that we don't need it, because Moody's, Fitch, and Standard & Poor's have given us a AAA credit rating. Let me put that in highlights the significance of that for you. Moody's, Fitch, and Standard & Poor's there are 5 what are called nationally recognized statistical rating organizations. The government tells us which are the 5 that we can use. Those 5 people, those 5 agencies have very sophisticated people who know more about the water district than when they walk in the room than some of us that do ourselves. And they ask very, very specific questions about how our capital is maintained. So for example, are the pipes in the street in good shape? Here's how we know that. We have less than a 4% water loss. In Washington, D.C., this is a fact, in DuPont Circle, they pump, for every 100 gallons of water they pump through the pipe, 25 come out on the other end, out of the faucet. They lose 75% of the water is lost through leaks in the piping system.
You're not talking about politicians and making...
That's right. In Mesa Water District service area, we have less than a 4% water loss, and that includes people that run over the fire hydrants when they've had too much to drink. So 4% water loss puts us, when we compare ourselves across every water district in the United States, there's a group that does this called the American Water Works Association. This puts us in world-class territory, world-class status. That's what they call it. So we're a world-class water agency. And so the answer to your question, do we need their reserves? Absolutely not. We've got a AAA credit rating. The system itself is in extraordinary shape. It requires constant vigilance, 24/7, 365 to maintain, upgrade, and maintain this system so that you folks rely on it. When you need it, it's going to be there. You're next and you're first. And I'll get to you last.
So first of all, on the ballot is going to be, do we want the Newport Mesa Water District to go forward in studying? So that's one thing. How
Yes.
long will that study need to
Take-
happen before we see the combining,
We're
the
still going to be
merging?
alive for the 650.
It'll take some time.
What's some time, a year, 2 years?
It'll take at least a couple of years.
Really?
Yes, at
That
least.
long? Okay, the other thing is by reducing the language to just should the Mesa Water District continue their study, the average voter's not going to be probably excited about that because they're going to see money and dollars and what's going to be the outcome of that.
So your question is, are folks going to be excited about our ballot initiative?
How are you going to get the message out that there's a 650 check waiting for them at some point?
Well, community volunteers like myself who are elected by nice folks like you. So I need to repeat the question. So how are we going to get the word out on the ballot initiative? How are we going to get the word out? Well, folks like me, and Mr. Atkinson and Mr. Fissler and Mr. Fitzpatrick, who's running for office, and I would strongly encourage you to vote for Mr. Fitzpatrick. He's been a maverick for change here, and change is what is needed, and we appreciate his support. So getting the word out is, public presentations like this. We are going to do community outreach in your newsletter this month, for example. It was there as well. So, yes, next question here, sir. Mr. Hamburger, how are you? How are you doing? Very well.
First of all, I just want to say I think what you guys are doing is great. It's long overdue, and I don't see how anybody could be against at least looking at the options. I mean, there's so much money there that it definitely warrants that, and the Sand District's going to spend money to fight this
Yes.
because they don't want anything changed in their little world. The question I have is, from what I understand, your board voted on it, it was a close vote. Is that correct?
So when we, this is, Mr. Ambergy's question is, when we voted on this, was it a closed vote?
Close.
Oh, close vote?
Close, 3-2.
No, it was 5-0. Yes, it was 5-0 for us to put it on the ballot. Yes.
Okay, so to do the study initially, it was 5-0?
Yes, everything's been 5-0 down the board so far.
The other question I have is, just like the city of Newport, a lot of the cities, like Scott is pretty much a director of the water district.
Yes,
Because
he
they
is.
control both the water, the trash, street lights, all
Yes.
the above. How many of the cities, the 30-odd cities left in
Have water,
County,
wastewater, or water and city functions separate?
will have them together or separate?
I don't know the answer specifically, but I can tell you there are 29 water districts in Orange County. I don't remember how many cities there are. Do you?
Only about a half a dozen. Anaheim, Fulton, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach.
But there are,
There's just a handful that actually run the water
and there's and the reason for that. So the question is, how come water in some cities like Anaheim? Anaheim's Public Utilities Department is a function of the city of Anaheim, and so the city council members oversee the function of the water district. Perhaps, I would suggest that it's better to keep, in this case, the two functions separate. Here's the reason why. Fine folks that serve on the city council, it's brutal duty. They have to negotiate police and fire contracts and all kinds of land use situations in the city that are typically very controversial. Their time is consumed by public speakers and by all of these controversial issues. So the water district issues that come up are the function of a utility, and they're typically very mundane, and they're engineering in orientation and difficult to resolve, and they require very specialized knowledge. We as directors, I can suggest, it is a very difficult process, even for me. This is my fourth water district event today. I started this morning at 8 a.m. and went immediately into another meeting, and again starting at 6 p.m. and now here. So this is my fourth water issues committee meeting, or whatever you would call this, presentation, something to do with the water district today. And so it requires a very specialized amount of knowledge about state law, federal regulatory law, drinking water kind of common sense stuff, and then the functioning of the utility. And what I would suggest is, as opposed to a city, a water district is really a capital finance project, because the city, has land and they have parks and things like that. But what we have is $1 billion in Costa Mesa of pipes that are buried in the ground that are constantly under pressure and are rotting. And so you can imagine in your own tiny little sprinkler system in your yard how difficult it is to keep that thing functioning correctly. Imagine if you had 350 miles of pipe under 150 pounds per square inch of pressure that people's lives depended on, and has to be clean enough to drink every minute of every day. And then you got people running over fire hydrants and folks that dig up with the backhoe when they're not supposed to and scrape the pipe and it leaks, and then leaks happen on their own and all kinds of other things. So and what tends to happen in the city functions is that the maintenance on the system gets deferred, and then the water rate is used as a offset. It's fungible. It can go from one account to the other account. So it's used for the operation of the city. 218 doesn't allow that. So respectfully, I will withdraw my comment. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
So, I recently had my sewer system sleeved,
Yes.
and it went from my home all the way down the street to the city dump.
Yes.
The entire way, I paid for that.
Yes.
When they came out and did the sleeve, they told me there was, some buckling, and if I did nothing, there was a chance that underneath the street, what you're saying could occur. So I took the hit on the maintenance.
Yes.
And I have that sleeved, and it's great for 50 years.
Yes.
So what you're stating is that these are failing across the city, and we have this $50 million reserve, but you want to give back $600 to people. Why would you not
Fix
use
all
that money
everybody's sewer lateral?
and address the sewer lateral issues instead of waiting for them to fail. And that's just one of my questions. The other
Well, let's
question
take one at a
is, how
time
am I
first.
really going to get the $650 back?
Okay, so the first question is, she's discussing something called the Sewer Lateral Assistance Program. So on your property, you have a sewer pipe that goes from your house and it goes into a main line in the street. There is, at some point, a private property line whereby, for example, at the water district, at the meter, upstream from the meter to your house is you own that water line. I understand. Yep. I understand, 100%. Yep, and so, so the sewer laterals are clay, and the city planted trees in the parkways and the medians and the roots from the trees like to seek out the water, and gee whiz, where's an easy piece of water to get? They find their way into that pipe, and they clog up the pipe, and they crack and so the sanitation district does have a sewer lateral assistance program. The question, Mr. Monahan, who is also running for the sanitation district, that's correct, and he did implement that program, and thank you, Gary, for, it is, and you can still ask for some of your money back, and I think they'll pay you about $1,500. Okay. So anyway, so the question you're asking is actually very complex because there is a private property part and there's a public property part. And so, for example, at Mesa Water District, we had a similar sort of problem. We had plastic lines that were connecting from our water main to our water meters. We didn't charge the customers for any of that. We did it all on the dime of the district. So if the merger were to occur, the answer to your question is we would study that and we would take up and undertake a business improvement process to find out the most efficient way to deliver that service to you. Because I agree with you, I have the same problem at my house, and mine is a $5,000 repair, and I have not yet completed it, but it needs to be done. And so we would study that issue. And yes, the goal would be to get you back that money and have enough in reserve to do all of the things that are necessary to cause the sanitation district to function not only at the level it's functioning at today, but take it to a next and much better level of functioning.
Well, my other question is that I'm kind of new to the scene of who's who and all the different players. And one thing I have noticed is everybody seems to be connected, whether you're on city council or the water district. And I get a little bit of a feeling that there's something that's said that sounds really great, but there's what's not said. And trying to understand what's not being said is a challenge for everybody. I did have a conversation with Bob Luton at the last election, and he explained in depth to me the situation with the contract and all the things that have not been told here today. I heard from him. And just as convincing as you are, and just as great it sounds like you're gonna do the best for everybody, I had that exact conversation with him. And
So where's the truth?
that's the big question. The big gray question is really who's going to deliver what, and are all the promises going to be as you say? In my view, and I'm sorry to say this, you have a negative for me because of the people that you associate with and my experiences with them. They've not been upfront. They've not been honest. I've caught them in
I'm
the
not sure who you're referring
multitude.
to, but.
Well, I'd like to keep the
I
names
don't
out of
think it
it.
was me,
But-
it could have.
But in all of the claims that they had made, I did independent research. I found falsehoods, huge. So unfortunately, your association with those individuals makes me question you.
That's fine. And
Not really a specific question, but.
let me address it generally. And so the purpose for being here is to address questions that folks have, and if you have them, ask. There's no holds barred here. Let me talk about process for a second. Government process is a bureaucratic process, is an inefficient way to do anything. I can just tell you that. And however anybody tries to get things through the government, I'm only one of 5 votes on our board of directors. So whatever I say only matters 1/5 of the decision. Director Atkinson and I don't agree on everything. We respect each other and we respectfully disagree often. we deliberate on things, and we, through the process of persuasion, try to find the median, the best solution. And Director Atkinson rightfully brings up issues that I don't naturally see. I have my own set of biases, confirmation biases, and other things that come to my mind by training, philosophy, my own value system. You would too. So at Mesa Water District, what we did, for example, let's take that trash contract, we passed a resolution to prevent evergreen contracts from occurring. We said that, and we passed this as a matter of law for the district by resolution. A resolution is different than just an acclamation vote. A resolution goes into the board's records and it has to be tracked forever. And so when the matter comes up, if we hired, let's pretend, I don't know what this nice young lady's name is, Gloria is an attorney. And let's say Gloria had been on retainer for the district for 3 years. Every 5 years, every contractor we have on retainer at the Mesa Water District, every 5 years has to go back out to bid. It has to. Gloria could re-win the contract. She could apply again, but there's no guarantee. And she knows that going in. So they're going to adjust their pricing accordingly. If we had the sanitation district and we had it under our business practices would require that trash contract to go out to bid every 5 years. And the trash contractor would have to adjust that accordingly. I'm happy to address questions.
Sean, the lawyer's contract says that he has the contract for life. There are 2 exemptions to the every 5-year bid. One is trash, and one is the lawyer.
And again, all we're talking about here is studying the issue, and I want to make one more point, is that when this issue came up, there are 2 ways to do things in government. You do them in open session, or you do them in closed session. Closed session is in secret. How do you get things in secret? You use what's called the threat of litigation. As soon as the threat of litigation flies across the table, in word or in deed, you are then closed into a room with your fellow 5 directors and an attorney and some members of the staff who will never record anything that's said. And in that room, decisions will be made and outcomes will be presented to the public after the fact. So when we took up this process, I insisted that all of it be done in public with a publicly noticed agenda. So every single thing that we're going to do on this issue will be done in public. It will be a public hearing. None of it will be done in closed session. It will be all done in public. So if you would like to sit through the entire process, you are welcome and you can participate as much as any of us as a board member. In fact, you have more right than we do to do so. Yes, ma'am.
How is this going to work for the people on the east side that are in Irvine Ranch Water? Where are we going to get our $650?
So there are 8,000 citizens who live outside of the service area of Mesa Water District, but within the service district of the Costa Mesa Sanitation District. So the estimates that we have are for all of the sanitation district customers. It's not for Mesa Water District's customers, it's for the sanitation district customers. So that would include you. And that was one of the other things that they sued for, was to try to prevent you from being able to vote on the ballot. And that was actually what the judge did rule, or it was actually the Board of Supervisors that ruled that, yes, you in fact did have a right to vote on whether or not this.
So how would that benefit the 8,000 that we don't have anything to do with Mesa Water?
So you'd still get the reserves, that $650 and the reduction in, you could do whatever. Yes, sir.
Okay, in the city of Newport Beach, we had a sewer spill, and it was in the back bay. It was in the creek that goes into the back bay over by by Newport Country Club, the Newport Golf, the little three hole underneath the airport, and they found the leak. They called us up. We got out there with our Vector trucks. We cleaned it all up, only to find out it was the Costa Mesa Sanitary District's line that was leaking. And they don't have Vector trucks. So combining the districts, will you be able to have those kinds of emergency equipment?
Yes, I believe we have a Vector truck. Yes, we have a Vector truck. And
It's about 18 months ago, maybe, well, Labor Day, so 2 years ago. They were fined over $400,000, and it was one of the largest fines of any sewer district per gallon.
So
One more question.
we're going to hash this out in public. Please come and participate. Yes, sir.
If this ballot measure gets passed by the voters?
Yes.
Does that kind of shut up the Senate District teachers?
Well, what it does is gives us a firm ground to stand on, knowing that the public supports us studying the issue. If the facts come back and they say, hey, this is all a bunch of nonsense, you guys are wasting your time, Director Atkinson and I are both going to say, this is nothing but a waste of time, forget it, and this is going away. But if it continues to, as you go through this process, this is complicated stuff. This is like graduate school, business school stuff. It also shows LAFCO, yes, that's correct. It also shows...
Doesn't Jim Risler work for LAFCO?
Jim Fissler does not work for LAFCO. Jim Fissler is on our board of directors, and he is an appointed member. He is the alternate member for the special districts of Orange County as a LAFCO member. However, because he is on our board of directors, he would not be able to be impaneled to hear the discussion or the deliberation and the outcome, have an influence on the outcome of the vote.
And one last piece of the question.
Yes, go for it.
I've been following the Costa Mesa Water District for the past couple of years. I'm on the board of directors for the Monticello community.
Yes.
We have old pipes. I'm not even going to get into all of that. Her question actually directly related to that. But one of the things I've noticed, the Costa Mesa Water District is very innovative. I think engineering-wise, they're doing a lot of fantastic stuff. That is above and beyond just providing water. So is it your intention to make sure that when the study is done, that kind of, those expenses and that kind of innovation is kept available to the new organization? Because it would be, from what I hear, we're doing fantastic things here, and I don't want to have our city lose that edge.
We have a great water district. I'm just being honest here. We have a great water district, and I'd be happy to argue with anybody about it. We got a lot to be proud of. We got a great water district. It's extremely efficiently run. There's no political agenda in water. I think this is a nonpartisan issue. We need it to provide 24/7, 365 for all kinds of reasons, and you folks know best what it's for. So anyway, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.